Subject matter today is technical and scientific defenses in an Alcotest case. Our mission here today basically is to sensitize you to issues that you'll spot when you're going through police reports and Alcotest discovery. And the issues will really come down on kind of two levels. Number one, issues that you think you're competent enough and feel confident enough based on your knowledge of the instrument and the case law and what we teach you here today to advocate the position on behalf of your client yourself in court. Or alternatively, you may see something that really requires expert testimony, not only to help educate you, but more importantly to educate the prosecutor and the judge. So you really have two types of knowledge we expect you to get out of today. And I'd like it to be so that when you're reading discovery, something's going to jump off the page at you. You say, well, wait a minute now, this might be an issue. Then be able to go back to your materials here today and check it out and prepare yourself for it, all right? Now, foundationally, what we're doing is this. You all have a lesson plan. The lesson plan will kind of follow what the PowerPoint is. Take your notes right on the lesson plan so you can refer to it back at your office. We've kind of split it up into the following. First of all, just the technical aspects of how the instrument works itself. Evan Laveau is going to do that. John Menzel and I will then go through the documents with you and point out ways that the documents should be hooked together when they don't match up the numbers, what to look for, problems with their legal issues that come up with the documents. Then we'll be going through some things you should be looking for during the course of the state's case, kind of like check-off lists and things of that nature to look for. So if there's missing pieces of evidence, you can make the appropriate motion at the close of the proofs. Sam is going to be talking to you about data downloads and the scientific aspects of that and how you can utilize scientific testimony from an expert in the defense of the case. And finally, we're going to have a panel discussion here where I expect each individual here to give practical advice on successful issues they've come across so far so that you can utilize the same issues when you find them.
Looking under the hood. I'm going to talk about the machine, the innards of the machine. Looking under the hood is actually the phrase that Judge King used ahead of time because he wanted to understand what we were talking about, and his phrase was, "I want to see what's under the hood and see if this thing really works." Just a little history about Draeger. It's important, I think, to understand where they come from. They've been around for 50 years. They started out with the Alcotest tubes, which are really the precursor to the ampules for the breathalyzer, and of course now Draeger is the successor in interest to Smith & Wesson for the old breathalyzer. They started with the PBT, the handheld device, and you see roadside somebody blowing into this device. Did anybody, there was a video floating around on the internet very recently of a guy in a foreign country being handed a PBT, and the officer hands him the PBT, and he takes it like this, and he goes, and he starts to drink it. Did anybody see that? That's very funny.
I said that to you.
Oh, it was actually Sam that was doing it. And this is the beginning of the Alcotest in 1980. And again, you now start to have the desk unit, 1982. This is the E-Pass. This is the 7410. This is what's actually used in California now as their evidential breath testing device. It's just a fuel cell unit, and it's rather scary that this alone is being used as the evidential device in court. Now we have the birth, well, we're going backward a little bit, but we have the birth of the Alcotest. 1998 was the MK3C, and of course the C, as everybody probably knows at this point, is the creation or the creature for the modem, the computerized back and forth, the information that we're supposed to be getting. We don't have the data download, which is just, if you get nothing else from today's seminar, this is the man right over here. Sam Sachs is the guy that's reading the data logs, the sheets that are 312 fields long of information that makes my head want to blow apart. It's scary stuff, but it's essential to figuring out some of the best defenses that we have, or what we're allowed to have on the machine. Now this, we'll go through all these photos in the rest of the presentation. Ironically, we've been fighting over the 7110 in New Jersey in classic fashion for years now, when even at the time this machine came out, there was already the 9510. The 9510 is a Windows-based machine. It's generally a similar platform, but it's smaller, it's prettier, it's not as stackable as this machine, but it is their better version, so to speak, of the machine. They didn't change a lot of things on it, as Hansuli Reiser, the vice president and I suppose chief engineer for Draeger, says. What's his comment? If you have a round wheel, you don't fix it.
You have a perfectly round wheel, you don't change it. The guts of the new instrument, the 9510, the calculation engine, are exactly the same as the guts in the 7110. The difference is that it uses a Windows CE interface, so it's a little more computer friendly than the 7110. But the calculation engine and all the components are the same.
Now, when we who took the Draeger training in the past year or so? Maybe about a third, quarter of everybody. One of the I like Hansuli Reiser. He's a very nice guy. He's very straightforward. That might not always answer the question that you want him to answer, but he'll give you an answer ultimately. He's very honest. And he said to me, I think to some others, in really a private conversation, if any state does what New Jersey did to Draeger, put them through the fight, defense attorneys, they're going to pull out of the U.S. market. Now, pending in as far as challenges go on the Alcotest is Massachusetts. They're fighting over the 7110, and Washington State has now gotten their bid specs in for the 9510. The lawyers in Washington are absolutely rabid. If you know anything about the scandal in the lab, Anne-Marie Gordon certifying simulator solutions that weren't certifiable, and she was ultimately thrown out, and thousands of breath tests were thrown out in Washington State due to the Washington State attorneys being absolutely on the ball and not letting go. For some reason, Draeger now is entering into Washington State, and it's beyond me why they're doing that.
By the way, Washington State in the late 70s was the first group of defense attorneys to do a source code challenge.
On Datamaster, right. So why they would do that with that history, I just don't understand. But it's a long footnote here. It's important to understand what we're fighting about is really now outdated technology to some extent, although it's the same technology in this machine. Now, the 71, these are the rates that we all have come to love and know and misunderstand at this point. The minimum flow rate, the breath volume, the blow duration, and all these things. These are the issues that we're going to be talking about throughout as defense issues and what you can look for. All of these particular settings are supposedly to make this machine now an internationally accepted breath test for these sampling requirements. What we found most interesting, troubling, or rather strange was the 1.5 liter setting for the blow. Think of 1.5 liters as just a water bottle, regular water bottle, 1.5 of those. That's the volume that you need to get to actually have an accepted sample, along with these other issues. Of course, the 1.2 liter volume is set now for women over 60, and the Intoxilyzer, CMI's machine, is pretty. Each machine and each state can set the specs for their machine, but most states do set their machines, their Intoxilyzers, at 1.2. Some states set it at 1.1, and we tried to convince Judge King to have that level change for everybody at 1.5, because if you've had the opportunity, and I don't have, this Alcotest is my machine, you can probably blow through it. I don't have too many mouthpieces here, but if you ever blew through a breathalyzer, it was a real clear, easy blow. real simple blow right through. This is a very labored blow. It's really, it's a very hard thing to blow through. So to actually get to the 1.5, it's doable, but it's not that easy. So, and one of the things I hate to keep saying that we're going to talk about, but I think one of the panel questions Professor Ramsey set up is some of the instructions that are given in by the officer are very important, because if the officer says, what I want you to do is I want you to breathe in like this, hold your breath for a second or two or whatever is said, and then blow as long and as hard as you can. You got a couple things happening there. First of all, I'm keeping the breath in. What am I doing? I'm heating the breath inside my body. And then the breath goes into the machine at a higher rate or at a higher temperature than is supposed to be read by the machine. P.S. The machine is set at 34 degrees to read human breath at 34 degrees. And all of the studies in modern times now say that breath temperature is not 34 degrees, but it's either 34.5, 34.8, or 35 degrees centigrade. And that was the whole issue that we'll get into in a couple of slides and later on about the 6.8% correction that really should be on the machine.